Welcome to another video, and today we're going to be talking about another new support gem coming to the game in Path of Exile's Trial of the Ancestors League, because yesterday we actually got some teasers, and one of those teasers was the new Trauma support gem. So the footage playing in the background here is the Trauma support in action, and here's the teaser text that we actually received with the footage, which came on Twitter, and it says, Trauma support supports strike skills, allowing them to scale damage like Bone Shatter. Be careful though, if you build up more trauma stacks than you can handle, it won't be the enemy's bones that you'll be shattering. So this support is essentially ripping the trauma mechanic right off of Bone Shatter and making it into a support gem on its own, which is interesting. Now let's take a look at Bone Shatter to understand exactly what this will be. So the Bone Shatter skill is a strike skill which has a large amount of flat added physical damage, and it has a built-in mechanic which causes an area damage pulse when you stun enemies, which makes it great for map clearing. And it also has the built-in trauma mechanic, and trauma is gained when you hit enemies, and this is a buff which grants more damage per stack, but it also deals self-physical damage whenever you gain new trauma stacks based on how many total trauma stacks you have. So on a level 20 gem, you deal 4% more damage per trauma stack, but you take 194 physical damage per trauma stack when you gain a new trauma stack. So the question is, which parts of Bone Shatter would appear on this new trauma support gem? Well, I don't think the new gem is going to have the flat damage or the area of effect pulse that's tied to stunning enemies, as I feel that these are specifically Bone Shatter traits. But the trauma support will get the trauma mechanic, with the scaling more damage multiplier and the scaling self-damage, and it may even just have identical scaling to the Bone Shatter gem itself. So here is the scaling for Bone Shatter gem levels. And you can see at gem level 1 all the way up to gem level 7, trauma only grants 2% more damage per stack, but the amount of self-physical damage is incredibly low as well. Then at gem level 8, the damage per trauma increases to 3% more, while the self-damage is still relatively low in comparison. Then at gem level 20, the damage per trauma increases again from 3% more up to 4% more, and the self-damage is very significant at this point at 194 per stack. And if you were somehow able to get to a level 36 Bone Shatter gem, you'd gain 5% more damage per trauma stack and take a ridiculous amount of damage per stack. It's very possible that trauma support will have identical scaling to this. However, I do think that if the scaling is the same, there's a very high likelihood that players will simply use a level 8 trauma support and drop 1% more damage per stack while taking nearly meaningless amounts of damage per stack. Because on Bone Shatter, the gem level scaling is very important for the flat added physical damage in most builds. But if the trauma support doesn't get any flat added damage, then the scaling on the gem needs to be correct. Otherwise it will just be cheesed for the most part. So this will be interesting to see exactly what they decide to go with the scaling for this new support gem. And what about the skills that you can actually use this support gem on? Well, it's specific to strike skills, so no slams unfortunately. And I think this will also have a melee tag, so no trauma bow builds. But here's the list of strike skills that we have access to, and in the teaser they were showcasing this with double strike and heavy strike. I wonder if it will be weapon limited like Bone Shatter is, as it can only be used with axes, maces, staves, and scepters. If it is, this will also exclude a few strike skills from use, like Puncture and Viper Strike, which require dagger, sword, or claw, or Pestilent Strike, which requires a dagger or claw. Otherwise, the rest of these will be fair game. I'm interested to see if trauma support will work on Bone Shatter itself. My guess would be that there will be a line of text on trauma support that will only allow you to gain trauma once per attack from any source. So that you can use it on Bone Shatter if you want, you'll gain the damage scaling from trauma and you'll have to deal with the extra self-damage from the new support gem as well. But you won't gain 2 stacks of trauma per hit. Or they might just straight up block it from supporting Bone Shatter, that's possible as well. Actually, I did just have a thought. What if we're actually looking at the Bone Shatter nerf right here? Oh no, what if the trauma mechanic is being removed from Bone Shatter and placed on its own support gem? So you've essentially just lost an entire support gem of damage on Bone Shatter builds. Oh dear, surely not, right? Anyway, there's a few interesting skills for use with trauma here. I think Flicker Strike might be quite a lot of fun. but do be aware that you'll probably still only gain 1 trauma stack when you use it with multi-strike, as that's how it functions on Bone Shatter currently. One thing that came to mind for me was Dominating Blow and Vow Domination. Using trauma support will presumably allow your Sentinels to gain trauma stacks, and I could see this being ridiculous with the Vow Domination Sentinels. Just imagine a giant Soul Eater Sentinel ramping a bunch of trauma stacks. You'll likely be running Determination as well, so your Sentinels will benefit from the armor for the self-damage. I also thought of Ancestral Protector, which is a strike skill. It's possible that you won't be able to support totem skills, but as with any buff, if you link trauma support to Ancestral Protector, you'll need to also find a way to gain trauma on yourself, because the totem will only benefit from the damage scaling of any trauma stacks you have on your character. But I do think that this will pose the potential for a lot of extra damage in a build using a double 6-link. One with Bone Shatter or another strike skill using trauma support, and the other 6-link with Ancestral Protector linked to trauma support. So there's a possibility there. And of course, it's important to point out that Bone Shatter's self-damage component from trauma stacks does count as a hit, and it's likely that trauma support will work this way too. So you can proc things that require being hit, such as Enduring Composure or Inexorable, and the damage can also proc Cast When Damage Taken support, so you can use things like Marks or Hexes for auto-triggering. And overall, I have to say that I'm quite a big fan of the design concept behind some of these new support gems, where you have a downside that you need to deal with, and if you're able to deal with it, you gain a presumably larger upside than a normal support gem that would just grant you damage with no downside. The same concept exists with the new Sacrifice support, and likely also the new Flamewood support. And I hope we continue to see more support gems like this, as I think they're just generally way more interesting to build around, as you actually have to think a bit about how you're going to make use of it. Do you like this new trauma support gem, and are you planning to use it in your League starter build for Trial of the Ancestors? Let me know by leaving a comment. Thank you to my channel members for your support, and if you'd like to support the growth of this channel by becoming a member from as little as 99p per month, you can find out more by clicking the join button below. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay tuned and stay safe.